Thank you, Hope. All right, everybody. So this is the council meeting for the revised agenda, the regular council meeting, Monday, March 14th, 2022. And just the opening of the council meeting, we'd like to acknowledge with gratitude that we live and work in the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, whose people have been stewards of these lands and waters surrounding Naglalaquam, Bowen Island for millenniums. Thank you. Another little note I'd like to pass along here, if people haven't heard it, but I just like to note the passing of Brian Biddlecombe. Longtime Bowen Islander. Brian served 45 years in the volunteer fire department, 11 years as chief. He also managed Cormorant Marine, which still, after 40 years, provides our emergency and transportation needs on the island. Brian was a huge advocate for everything Bowen Island and will be very dearly missed. Our hearts and thoughts go out to the family. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. The late items we have, Hope?
Yes, there were 3 items circulated earlier today. The 8.1, the user fees for electric vehicles, and then there's an item from in relation to item 8.2, and then 11.6 as well.
All right, got them all. Okay, so anything that you see, any errors or admissions that people would like to talk about in the agenda, or stuff that they would like to add to? I don't see any hands up. We're still missing a few here, right?
I think we're all here, Gary.
Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah, got them all.
Yep, we have everyone.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I will approve the agenda by consensus, and we'll move on to public comments. Over to you, Hope.
So we just have Richard Wiefelspuett for tonight regarding agenda item 8.2.
Oh, that's terrific. Richard, welcome.
Welcome too, and thank you for having me tonight. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will be speaking to item 8.2, cost attribution to local service area for phase 1 Sneko sewer WWTP upgrade, possibly the acronym of the year, if you don't count the Management Council on top of that. It gets longer and longer. Anyways, I want to talk about DK infrastructure, and it's a, I also made a written submission, so that should be on the record, and I tried to keep it short. Well, DK infrastructure in the municipal sector is of growing concern, and Bowen is really not an exception. And luckily, there are tools to deal with this. As I mentioned, planning, proactive maintenance, and maybe most importantly, an intelligent balance and astute awareness of capacity limits and local development aspirations that can go a long way in avoiding crisis situations such as Bowen Island's failing Snug Cove wastewater treatment plant. I don't know which of these tools are available to the municipal staff, but I think if they had been applied earlier on, the current crisis could have been avoided. And there's another element to this story, that's the firefighting approach of applying 1.64 million, an emergency patch of that magnitude to the plant, using funds reserved for the interests of all user groups. And I sense from the distance, from contacts with friends and from what I read in the papers, a sense of unfairness and injustice amongst many island residents whose properties and businesses are already maintaining their own wastewater treatment solutions at their own expense. So in a nutshell, BIM's proposed funding model for the required quick fix is based on using monies that have been saved by all Bowen Islanders over years and are held by the municipality, in my view, in trust for the proverbial rainy day and exclusively for purposes that benefit the community at large. I mean, you've heard this before, and folks educated in these matters and so many floors above me in the Tower of Law have voiced their sound concerns, quoting appropriate bylaws and demonstrating the potential illegality of the related resolution passed in a special council meeting on January 31st. The wording in the appropriate bylaws is specific, and I won't to details, but what I see, cost recovery for the service shall be by user fees and parcel taxes as defined by the bylaws to be recovered solely from the properties included in the area defined. I find it also worthwhile to look at Bylaw 533, which is a framework for decision-making and the foundation for the delivery of community services, financial sustainability, and a desirable legacy for the future generations. And the things I want to quote are just starting off that bylaw. It says, we will ensure service levels and the funding of such services are sustainable. We will maintain our infrastructure in proper state of repair. We will ensure property taxes that are equitable and strive to strike a balance between customer demand for services and taxpayers' ability to pay. And we will live within our means. That was crafted by you guys in 2021, and it's valid and it's guiding us through these terms. So the municipality's approach to solve the SCWWTP crisis does not really resonate with these principles. The plan is more along the lines of saying, of the saying, may rob Peter to pay Paul, and that creates that reaction in the general public. So I was believing that we have an issue here, and so in an effort to gain further clarity of the legality of the funding proposal, I've reached out today to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and talked to the funding officer for Bowen Island. The feedback I received supports the applicable sections of the Community Charter and Bowen Island related bylaws are in conflict. The legality of the funding plan is questionable, and if it goes ahead, in my opinion, can be challenged in court. As justification for the current funding proposal, Council and staff have termed the Snug Cove sewer system a municipal asset of strategic significance. Well, the question begs, why then was so little attention given to its upkeep, and why were well-known capacity limits ignored while issuing more and more development permits? These capacity limits have been known for almost 2 years and possibly longer, as is documented in video footage of the Eagle Cliff Local Advisory Committee, September 18, 2020. You will know who sat in that committee, and I'll have to repeat it here or tell you, and you will know that it was stated, the SCWWTP requires significant upgrades because it is unable to accommodate any more growth. That's a statement from
Richard. Sorry, just letting you know you're at your 5 minutes.
Where am I now?
At 5 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm closing up here. So in just a few closing words. If Council decides to move ahead with the funding proposal without enshrining a robust payback model in the legislation, this may well warrant a complaint to the Office of the Ombudsperson and or the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. I have another point that's in my written submission that relates to the OCP amendment that was directed to be taken on last year. Cape Roger Curtis, to protect the natural environment, its ecosystem and biological diversity. That resolution was passed in September 2021. The motion carried 4-3, and 6 months later, there's no visible action on this file. It's not on the agenda. I think it should be. It's essential that this OCP amendment gets on the agenda and is moved ahead and completed within the current council term. Time, as so often, like in my presentation, is of the essence. So thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Richard. Your points are well taken. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything in the consent agenda that they'd like some clarification on? Allison, what have you got?
I would just like to pull the last information item, 1213.
Okay. All right, yeah. Is that it? Anybody else? Okay, I don't see any hands out there. So the recommendation is the council approve the items as outlined in the March 14th, 2022 consent agenda as amended. Move that. Thank you, Sue Ellen. And all in favor, I got. Thank you. Thank you. And okay, so go ahead, Allison.
Okay, so two things. One is 1213. I just wanted to draw to everybody's attention that if you want to participate at all, the Lower Mainland virtual seminar webinar is tomorrow night, March the 15th.
Okay.
So if you just follow the links, you can find the information to that. I think they're just asking for input from people, but if you wanted to figure out what was going on. So I just wanted to draw everybody's attention to that.
Okay,
And I will move that information item 12.13 be received.
okay, second that. All in favor? Aye.
And I just have one more information item.
Okay,
In case, if any, I happened to look at Hope's signature line on her emails the other day, and she now has CMC behind her name. I told you
What?
I was going to bring it up.
well, what
I
is that?
can't remember what CMC actually stands for, but she's received a municipal clerk's designation that I think is an international designation. And I think we should offer her our congratulations.
What is it, Hope?
Thank you.
What is it?
It is the Certified Municipal Clerk designation through
Oh,
the International
terrific.
Institute of Municipal Clerks.
Wow, congratulations. That's great.
Thank you. I'm
Well
blushing.
done. Thanks,
Thanks, Allison.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, so items removed from the consent agenda. We've covered that. The delegations. Hope? Nada.
None.
Business arising from the minutes have been dealt with, and also the bylaws. Staff reports 8.1, user fees for public electric charging stations. Natasha Chung, Island Community Planner. Natasha, how are you?
Good, thanks. Hope everyone is doing
Good.
well.
Good.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. I'll just share my screen here. All right, everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so tonight I'm here to present and discuss our proposed EV charging station user fee model. Now, given it's been some time since the EV charging stations were purchased, I'll start off by presenting a brief background just to ensure everyone has the most up-to-date information. As a reminder, in October of 2018, the municipality, through BC Hydro rehabilitation funding, purchased 2 level 2 stations from Flow, a leading North American EV charging network provider. In 2019, Council approved the existing library parking lot as an appropriate location for installation, given stakeholder consultation feedback and the site's proximity to electrical servicing, along with the site's public tenure of land and visibility from Bone Island Trunk Road. However, due to pandemic-related delays, the stations were only recently installed in late January of this year. At this time, the stations have been serviced by BC Hydro, so they are connected to the electrical grid, but we have not yet commissioned them since we need to establish a user fee first. So staff are proposing a user fee model to recoup any operational and maintenance costs. And we've also been advised by Flow to issue a billing service, as many of the smaller municipalities who initially provided the stations at no cost are now moving towards implementing a fee structure. In terms of a user fee option, I've created a chart to show you the different models that the Muni can implement. I won't be presenting these models in depth as they're described in the council report. However, as you can see, staff have decided to pursue the time-based option where fees are based on the length of time the parking space is actually occupied. So this model is simple to understand and mirrors existing rate structures in similarity or in comparison to parking meters. The 2 latter models, so the energy-based and hybrid models, are harder to enforce and may be more difficult for users to gauge wait times, and this can lead to a less positive user experience. And to implement this time-based user fee, we will be utilizing Flow's payment processing service, which gives staff the ability to remotely monitor usage and indirectly collect payment. Now, in order to establish an appropriate user fee, we conducted a jurisdictional scan of 10 Metrovan municipalities and 10 rural municipalities similar to Bowen in terms of population, who also own and operate public EV charging stations. Findings reveal that 8 out of the 10 municipalities in Metrovan have an associated fee, while rural municipalities offer more of a mix of billing services. Given the municipality stations are located in the library lot, which currently has a 3-hour parking time limit, and has existing parking enforcement in place, we've chosen to employ, or we are recommending to employ, a charging time limit of 3 hours, which reflects the library's standard 3-hour time restriction. Rate standardization was also recommended by Flow, and hence we're choosing to employ a graduated rate similar to those in Metrovan and other rural municipalities. So, however, to optimize utilization, we are proposing a graduated rate of $1 for the first 2 hours and $3 for the remaining hour to encourage turnaround. We also calculated a life cycle cost estimate to determine whether the rates were or will be financially feasible. The Flow charging stations are guaranteed for 3 years. However, they are designed to last for over 10 years. And the displayed table provides a rough estimate with a weekly 20-hour usage at the recommended graduated user rate of $1 for the first 2 hours and $3 for the second, or for the third hour, sorry. Calculations reveal that at a 20-hour weekly usage, the municipality will not generate a loss, and over a 10-year life cycle, they will have remaining funds that can be allocated towards purchasing new EV infrastructure. I will note that a weekly 20-hour estimate is optimistic and was chosen also based off of producer feedback. However, once staff have access to Bowen Island specific data, the life cycle cost estimate will be updated and rate adjustments may be recommended. I won't go in depth in the displayed calculations during this particular presentation, but we'll be happy to review this further in the Q&A if anyone has questions or concerns. And then finally, since the stations are in the library lot and will be utilizing prime parking space, a hybrid parking regulatory model was recommended by the Transportation Advisory Committee. And so to ensure accessibility to the parking spot for all vehicles, it was proposed that the EV station parking spot have a 15-minute general limit for all vehicles, unless the vehicle is charging, in which case the limit is 3 hours. I will also note that the municipality will be issuing a disclaimer sign for liability reasons, and the signage will be utilized to appropriately communicate the hourly and parking restrictions for the EV stations. So in light of this information, we are recommending that Council approve the charging of user fees at the municipal owned and operated public charging stations at a rate of $1 for the first 2 hours and $3 for the remaining hour. And also recommending that Council approve a hybrid parking regulatory model wherein the parking spot nearest to the electric vehicle charger have a 15-minute general limit on all vehicles, unless the vehicle is charging, in which case the limit is 3 hours. So I will now open it up and take questions or feedback from Council.
Thank you. That's brilliant, Natasha. I think that should work really well. So we'll go to Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Natasha. I'm glad we're going to be charging for the youth. So just a couple of clarification questions. Are you proposing $1 per hour for each of the first 2 hours, or $1 in total for the 2 hours?
$1 each hour.
Okay, so the resolution isn't clear. I think we should say $1 per hour for the first 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it does say one dash there, but it, for each of the first 2 hours, I think it's just got to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other question is Hydro going to charge us for that power?
Yeah, so that'll be
it's not in your expense line, a charge for Hydro.
So that's in the miscellaneous. It'll be in the miscellaneous operating in.
Okay, so it's not very much then we're going to be charged for the power.
I don't know, because I looked into the various rates that BC Hydro charges, and it's at quite a low peak in terms of energy consumption. So I don't foresee it being as much as we're anticipating in the life cycle cost estimate. I think we're just being a little more conservative with this.
Okay, and then the other question is, I gather from your presentation that you want us to save, not take the net profit, annual net profit, or net excess of revenue over expenses, to into general revenue and spend it for operating the municipality, but actually put it aside and have it there when we have to replace the charging station.
For further, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Sue Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I
Mhm.
just have a question, and I'm delighted to see this. I watched the cat video where we discussed this several years ago. Again, recently. Thank you, Maureen. And but I've been looking forward to this. I used to be on the transportation committee, and I remember big discussions. My question is about the 15 minutes free parking. I'm just imagining, and sorry, I don't own an electric vehicle at the moment, but I'm imagining hovering nearby, waiting to get in there to charge my vehicle because my vehicle was low and I needed to catch a ferry or pick up my child or something. And how will, if there's somebody has zipped in front of me and is going to do errands while they're in there for 15 minutes, and I've come out of my parking spot, what do I do then? I'm just not sure how the 15-minute free parking helps somebody who's waiting to charge. Can you explain that?
Right. I hear you. It was a conversation we had with DIMTAC in terms of the equity piece to ensure that we weren't prioritizing kind of parking or prime parking space, particularly for individuals who own EV or electric vehicles. So it was more of an inclusion aspect, right? Just to ensure that if you aren't able to own an EV, you still can access a parking spot.
Okay, thank you. Then thanks for the explanation. In that case, I'm not in favor because I think we should be promoting the use of electric vehicles, and somebody who's waiting down in the Cove for a charge probably needs it. And I think we have a lot of free parking in the Cove for other people to drive around and find. So I hear you about the equity, but I think there's an aspect of encouraging electric vehicle use and helping people who are almost stuck and they need that charge. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, point taken. Maureen?
Thank you, Gary. A couple of points. My first point is to agree with Sue Ellen. I don't think that the 15-minute option is especially useful or enforceable. And in terms of equity, I am in favor of promoting electric vehicle use, especially if you're dealing with visitors to the island who are going to be stuck unless they actually have the opportunity to charge their cars. So that part of the proposal I don't agree with. The second point is that I'd like to add to the first recommendation that the fee schedule be reviewed after a year of operation, just to see how things are working. We're proceeding on the assumption that the usage will be 20 hours a week. Maybe it'll be significantly more than that or less. Yeah. But I just would like the information to be collected after a year. And sure. The third point is that, how do I put this? The charging stations are singularly unimpressive. You look at them and it's like they're held together with Scotch tape and glue. Physically, they don't look the part. So I'm wondering if there are any plans to improve the aesthetics, the prominence, the signage. Just something needs to be done, and it's not just because of how things look, it's because of how things will function. Somebody's going to miss that they are electric charging stations unless they kind of present more as electric charging stations. And I know that there's a lot of sort of standardized signage that's used in other communities to signal to people that this is an EV station. So I would like, as part of the operationalizing of all this to not just look at how it functions, but how it presents to the community.
Yeah. I apologize if I didn't mention, but a signage will be issued in terms of the aesthetic of the actual EV charging station. I can look into that. However, I don't know what I can personally do on that end because we were provided them by the service provider.
Yeah,
But I feel like in terms of the signage, we can compensate for that.
that would be good. Even a coat of paint would help. They just
Okay.
look really unfinished.
Okay.
And Liam's daughter agrees with me.
Is that what you were going to say, Liam?
Well, I was going to say they're actually really solidly built, so it's not Scotch tape and glue. But I do agree that a coat of paint would go a long way. So
Okay.
we'll look into that for sure.
All right, thanks, Liam. Okay, over to you, David.
Thanks, Gary. I just want to speak to the 15 minutes. I mean, I take the points of the previous two councillors, and actually, of course, we do have 2 charging stations. We were talking about 1 parking spot. The worry I'll just speak to the discussion at BIMTAC. The worry we had there was because it's a really prime parking spot, that there would sort of be, and we felt that would probably be empty for the first good while. That would sort of lead to a backlash. But we certainly would all be amenable to, seeing how this thing works. But we just didn't want to be, to have that spot empty all the time and people saying, "Oh my goodness, this whole thing is just silly because it's taking up a good spot." So that's just really where that came from. But I'll accept wherever council proposes on that.
Okay, thank you, David. Allison?
I just didn't twig to the 15 minutes being for anybody. I thought maybe it was for 15 minutes for somebody to run across and get some change so they could pay the $1. So I'm totally opposed to having them be used for anything other than charging. So that's, and I mean, in all the other municipalities, the charging stations are in pretty prime parking locations and they don't allow anything other than charging as far as I'm aware from any I've looked at. And I'm just curious, those charging stations we've installed don't look like anything like any of the ones I've ever seen in other municipalities. They're more of a parking meter shape rather than this big box we've got. So just curious as to why they're so different looking.
That's what we got.
Yeah, I feel like I can't comment on that. And also, I mean, they were ordered 4 years ago, so potentially things could have changed in terms of the technology. It's doubtful, but it's a possibility.
Now, I noticed that the resolution doesn't say anything about the 15 minutes free.
No,
so
hasn't.
Do we have to cover that off in the resolution?
That was added as a late item agenda. So
Oh, that was
Okay.
a late item.
yeah.
Okay,
That's
I
fine.
printed my agenda off before the
Yeah.
late item. Okay, so
Okay, Michael?
Yes, hi, Natasha. Thank you. Natasha, on a more mechanical question, can you just tell me, various manufacturers now produce electric cars. Are these charging stations, will they work for all of the commonly known or the presently known manufacturers of electric vehicles? I mean, I know Tesla have a different plug-in to the others, and there isn't yet a universal, there's a lot of sort of work to be done on making these plug-ins universal for all manufacturers. And I'm not, forgive me, I'm not sure of the mechanics, but can just about every type of electric vehicle that you know of work on these stations?
I believe so. I think that was one of the rationales for ordering a level 2 charger with that particular plugin.
Okay, so they will, so whether you're driving a whatever or a whatever, you can still plug it into to the charging station.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Kristen?
Thank you. I wanted to just raise the issue of the flow and the payment, the payment process. I wasn't really clear. So if $1 charged, do we receive $1? I mean, there's generally credit card fees and commissions and that kind of stuff that gets payment processing fees, all of that. I wasn't clear on who paid those. And just also to make a general comment that $1 an hour is extraordinarily cheap. I mean, generally parking meters are $3 an hour and you don't get electricity. I noticed the city of Fruitvale went big and went $3 flat straight per hour for the entire 3 hour. I think it's easier to put in a fee and review it and say, hey, you know, this turns out it's too high. Let's claw it back. I think it's easier to reduce it than it is to go higher once it's there. And it is an amenity that is available to the community. They could come from a power outage at their house and come down and drive. You know, it's a fantastic amenity for people who live here, and it's a fantastic amenity for visitors. And I think it's simpler to start and charge $3 an hour from the get-go for every hour.
Okay.
I mean, I can comment, or just a quick comment to that. In terms of like the rate standardization, Flow was quite adamant for the user experience. I entirely hear you that it is easier to go from having a higher price to a lower price as opposed to the opposite. So that's a great comment.
I guess you could say that if the people if they need a charge, they're going to pay almost anything for it. They don't care if it's $1 or $2 or $3, really. If they need a charge, they should only be plugging in there if they need a charge. Okay, so no more hands up there. Okay.
What about the question the second question Kristen asked about who's collecting the money and how much of it do we get?
Right,
Yeah.
so sorry. That's part of the servicing fee, the $150 servicing fee. And it is collected to Flow and it's remitted back to the municipality quarterly. So we should be getting the entire price back or revenue back.
Okay.
Even if it's paid for by a credit card, because the credit card company will take a commission off before they remit the money to Flow.
That's something that I'll have to confirm with Flow, but from our discussions, it seemed as if it was $150 standard service fee.
And typically, you'll need a Flow account with a Flow card to use the machine. And so, like, I personally have one, so you can't just walk up and use your credit card. And so most EV users, like myself, I have 4 accounts with 4 different EV charging networks. And it doesn't cost you anything to be a member. You just have, because then you have an account. So it'd be like having an account with 4 different gas stations, so to speak.
Interesting.
Except nowadays, one credit card works for all gas stations.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe we'll get there where one card works for all EV, but we're not. EV has got a few miles to catch up on internal combustion. So. Okay,
David, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. I'm just responding to Kristen's point. I mean, $1 an hour, think about it, is absurdly cheap. And I'm quite happy to change it to, you know, just a flat rate of $2 an hour or something like that, if that's simple. You know, the $1 because we wanted to keep it nice and inexpensive, but I mean, it is ridiculously inexpensive. You know, to get your car, just think of the cost of gas.
Yeah, well, that's another thing altogether. But I do like the idea of a graduated system too, though, so that people will, well, but like you say, if it's $2 or $3, you know, at this point in time, who really cares? Sue Ellen.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, how long typically does it take to charge a vehicle at a level 2 station? Because what I don't want is for people to be able to pay $5 and get that prime spot and
For
just
3 hours.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
typically, it depends on your battery size of your car. So it's for a full charge from a level 2 charger, anywhere from 6 hours to 16 hours for a full charge.
Okay. Thank you. So an off-island visitor who needed to get into the ferry lineup and wait and then drive onto the ferry and then get off and go to another charging station would need at least half an hour or an hour or something like that. So this sounds fair to me. I'm happy to raise that first number to $2. I still like the graduated because I think we want to go that way with many of our fees, and it still discourages people hanging around too long when other people might be waiting to use it. So I'm okay with 1 hour to encourage, or 2 hours to be a little more realistic, or $2, sorry, to be a little more realistic, as long as the $3 per hour for the remaining hour. I'll go with the staff recommendation. Thank you. So
we've got a 2, 2, and 3 on the table here. And what about the 15-minute parking for non-EVs? What's the standard there? Nobody wants it. Okay, well, we'll probably have to vote on that one. So let's can we have that? Sorry.
There's a motion that we just wouldn't move or second it. I wanted to support the $2 because I'm looking at what Vancouver charges, and they're $2. And North Van charges $2 probably in most of the prime spaces. So I'm thinking people are going to be used to paying $2. So why don't we just make it the same as what they're used to?
I'll move the motion.
You read it out.
Which one are you going to move?
I'm going to move that council approve the charging of user fees at the municipal owned and operated public electric vehicle EV charging stations at a rate of $2 per each hour. Is that what you said?
Per hour for the first 2 hours.
For the first 2 hours.
I think, can you just throw in for each of the first 2 hours just to make it super, super clear?
Yeah, I wanted the word each in there as well. I thought that was a good idea. Each of the first 2 hours, and $3 per hour for the remaining hour.
Okay, I'll second that. And
with the amendment to be reviewed after 1 year of operation.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And that the fee schedule be reviewed after 1 year.
Yeah, thank you for that, Maureen. The friendly amendment, I think that'll sit.
I meant
And
to read it out.
further discussion on this one? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that's great. Thank you. And let's go back to could you put the other one on the screen? For the
I can read it. The council approve a hybrid parking regulatory model wherein the parking spot nearest the electric vehicle charger have a 15-minute general limit for all vehicles, unless the vehicle is charging, in which case the limit is 3 hours.
So if nobody moves it, nobody seconds it, it just is a non-event.
Okay. Do I have anybody to move that? No. Okay, it's dead. All right. Thank you. So we're good on that then. We'll move on to 8.2, which is cost attribution. The local service area for phase 1 Snug Cove Sewer WWTP upgrade. Kristen Watson, Chief Financial Officer. Kristen, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Ander. I'm bringing forward a report tonight to provide council with some additional information on financing for the Sneko sewer treatment project. And to provide a little bit of background, on January 31st, council passed a resolution to include $1.6 million in funding in the 2022-2026 5-year financial plan. Now that money is slated to come from $1 million of it to come from the Capital Renewal and Replacement Fund, and $640,000 of it to come from accumulated surplus. So I just wanted to bring forward the report to inform council that over the last few years, there really have been some significant investments in of general funds in the sewer local service area. And I know that the $721,000 is brought up from time to time, but there are others too. And with the latest investment of 1.6 million, it will bring the total to over 3 million in the last decade. Yeah. So these upgrades are necessary. They must go ahead, and I can confirm that the work is proceeding without delay. It's clear that the sewer system is key to many of council's priorities that are planned for the Cove. Snug Cove is home to the services and to the amenities that our community relies on. So I think it is fair and reasonable that some of the cost of the upgrade be attributed to all taxpayers. But I also think it's fair and reasonable that as a local service area, that property owners within that local service area should be attributed directly with a share of the costs. I think that a shared cost model is more consistent with the past practice of requiring that our local service areas are self-funded. And it's also in line with some of the more recent utility projects that have been funded in whole by the local service areas, including Tunstall Bay and the Cove Bay Water Treatment Plant. So I'm working on the budget at the moment. I haven't completed it, but before I finish my work on the budget this year, I just wanted to give council the opportunity to consider the option of an allocation of project costs directly to the local service area. Now, this wouldn't impact the financing arrangement that was previously agreed to. As I said before, the project will go ahead as planned and will be funded according to the resolution passed by council on January 31st. However, there is an opportunity to implement an internal financing arrangement for a portion of the debt that could be collected back over time. So council could consider a new parcel tax, or they could consider increased user rates, or maybe some combination of the two. And the repayment period could extend presumably between a 5 to 10 year period. And if council is agreeable to the idea, then I could work with the Director of Engineering to determine a reasonable allocation of costs and bring back some proposals for repayment to the next council meeting on the 28th.
Mhm.
All right. Is that it, Kristen?
Yep, I'm happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you. Sue Ellen.
Okay, my question is just a simple one to make sure I lingo right. When you talk about repayment, developing repayment options, basically what you're talking about is sort of a loan, or is that the internal borrowing? Would those phrases be correct?
That's correct. We call it internal borrowing, and it's the exact same structure or model that's in place now for Cove Bay, who is repaying an internal loan from the Land Opportunity Reserve Fund to help fund construction costs at the water treatment plant.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right track. In that case, I'm in favor of this recommendation. I think it leads to better equity. I don't want the municipality to be subsidizing some businesses or some residents on Bowen over other ones. I really thank you for bringing this forward. And I would add, in your report, I think I saw a few places like the library and different places that were common to all across the island. And I agree, there are some of those as well, including Bowen Island Community School is also on the system. So there's some significant public services, and there are others that I think we should borrow for. So I'm in favor. Thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. And over to Rob.
Yeah, Kristen, thanks. And I agree with Sue Ellen. I'm very uneasy about this going to the general taxpayer. I definitely, lean much more towards the user pay within the system itself there. So any kind of modeling you can do around it and what that would look like price structure wise, I think would be really, really good for us as councillors to see, because I do think there is a big equity issue here, especially with people that are paying for their own septic and all that, and now having this feeling they're subsidizing. And that's definitely the feeling I get from the community as well. So I'm looking forward to that report if the council decides to go ahead with that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Rob. David?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. And Kristen, thank you very much for this. I really don't have anything to add. The two previous speakers pretty well covered the topic. I think you covered it very well in your own report. The rationale behind the model that you propose, and looking forward very much to seeing what you come up with. So thanks for doing this. Thank you, David. Maureen.
Thank you, Gary. I also support the recommendation as written in the council agenda. So I do have a question though, Kristen, and I wonder if you could recap for the record what the current users of the sewer system pay on an annual basis. I realized as I was going through all of this that I don't actually know. So could you recap that?
So the sewer system, it's kind of backwards. We set an annual budget of what needs to be collected. That includes all anticipated operating costs for the year, plus a contribution to capital reserve fund. So we set the budget, and then the sewer rates are actually piggyback on the water metered rates. So the theory is that the amount of water consumed by a property is correlated to the amount of water that they're going to produce going out back to the sewer. So it's done because you can't measure sewage coming out of the house. So we have to do it on the water meter going in. So what we actually do is calculate, we measure the total volume of water consumed among the sewer properties, and we divide that in thirds. We bill 3 times a year. So we'll collect a third each time, and we'll distribute it back to each property owner based on their proportionate share of total water consumption for that billing period. So the billing rate goes up and down because it's reverse engineered to calculate what we need to collect to meet that budget. So sometimes it would range from $4 per cubic meter of water used, and could go as high as $7 or $8 per cubic meter. Again, it all depends on what's needed to collect at the end.
Okay.
And that way, done volumetrically, then there is the opportunity for users to reduce their water consumption and would therefore reduce their water bill or their sewer bill.
Okay, so two questions then. One is that the number of hookups is not actually the deciding factor, it's the actual usage.
100% volumetric, yeah.
Okay, so if a commercial operation has one hookup and a residence has one hookup, they're not being charged the same, it's the usage that determines. Okay. Okay, I'll leave it there for now.
I'll be sure to when I come back to the next meeting, I'll grab kind of an average. I'll grab some data and see, a typical house on Kate's Hill versus some of the business properties, and just get some background information to give you a better sense of what the actual dollars were. I guess I didn't really answer your question. I told you all about how we collect it, but I didn't really tell you how much a person pays, because it's really variable.
Okay, but that would be helpful to have as we assess what the impact of some of these changes might be on an individual homeowner, especially if they're thinking about what kind of impact is this going to have on their household budget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good point, Maureen. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. So the recommendation is, whereas council has directed staff to include 1,640,000 in the 2022 to 2026 a 5-year financial plan for construction of the phase 1 Snug Cove sewer wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Therefore, be it resolved that council directs staff to calculate project costs attributable to the Snug Cove sewer local service area and develop a repayment options for the general fund for consideration in the 2022 to the 2026 5-year financial plan. I will move that.
Second.
And I got David there. And further discussion? I see none. All in favor? Aye. Terrific. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay. Correspondence, none. Reports on committees, cows, commissions. New business, 11.1. Implementation of the in-person hybrid council meetings. Liam Edwards, CAO. Liam.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is just a verbal report. And last week, the provincial health officer announced the easing of COVID restrictions, including the lifting of the mandate for mask wearing in public spaces. And we'll see further easing likely to follow, and anticipating a removal of the vaccination passport requirements, April 8th, I believe it is. And so we're talking internally here about when council may come back to the chambers for in-person meetings, and so we're wanting to talk with council about what that might look like timing wise. And we did during the long period of absence, we did install a new system, some new technology that we do have some final tweaks being made to it tomorrow. And so with that, assuming to go well, we would like council to decide on when perhaps we would return. And I would suggest one of the meetings in April, perhaps, the first or the second meeting in April. And I'll leave it at that and open it up for discussion.
Okay, thanks, Liam. I'm in for getting back in as soon as we can. That's my thought. David.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, and thank you, Liam. So sorry, Liam, but just to clarify, the technology is such that we still could have hybrid meetings where we have people at the hall and also coming in, and they won't all, it'll
Correct.
work.
Correct. We could have hybrid meetings, and we did update our procedure bylaw to reflect that. And so there may be instances, like, for example, myself, in the month of April, I'll have some additional child minding duties, and so I might have to be hybrid or from home or something. So
great.
We have where you can only have 3 people, though. Is that correct, Liam? There's only
Well, the
3
procedure
people.
bylaw hasn't been adopted yet, the amendments, but that would be one of the pieces, that there'd be a maximum of 3 if we're having an in-person meeting.
Okay. All right. Yep. Super. Sue Ellen.
I think
Thanks, David.
there's also the other little piece about, unless a certain proportion of council agrees that they would let one more come on. For example, if one of us was stuck in the ferry lineup or something.
Of course.
Yeah, and my question is, I'm already back in in-person meetings with Islands Trust, so I'm happy to come back whenever. And secondly, will the public be able to participate online as well as in person? Thank you.
yes.
Yes. So regardless of all of councils in the meeting, we'll still have the members of the public able to join electronically
Right.
or come into the chambers.
Great.
Lots of options. Maureen.
Would there be any restriction on the number of members of the public who can attend?
No, the capacity limits have also been lifted.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. And Allison.
Well, I guess as to number of people, there is the fire department capacity limit.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I'm
60.
not sure what that is, and I think we may have exceeded it a couple of times. I'm guessing.
Yeah, when the fire department was in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And no, it wasn't that one. It was one
Oh,
over.
it was that one.
So the other question I have is, do we have to pass all the amendments to the procedure bylaw before we can do this?
No, we're allowed, we can have electronic meetings or in-person meetings. This just sets those extra parameters for how many members can join. But I do plan to bring the bylaw back for first, second, third reading at the next meeting.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking of the timing of doing it. If we had to pass the bylaw before then we would be into the second meeting in April rather than the first meeting. But if we don't have to pass it, then the amendments, then it doesn't matter.
The way it's worded now, it's quite open.
Okay. That was
Okay.
my only
Thanks,
question.
Allison. Michael?
Could someone just explain what is 3 a sort of magic number? Does it have to be 3, or if there's 4 people away for some reason? I just want to know what the thinking was behind it.
3 is there's other municipalities that they did the poll, and that's kind of what the general consensus was going with. But there are other municipalities that have no restriction. So it's just it's wanting to get back to that in person and having it electronic for kind of special circumstances. But we can change the number when I bring the bylaw back for first reading. It'll come. I'll be presenting it with 3, but we could always amend that.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Sue Ellen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think part of the thinking around 3 and 4, and that has to do with quorum. And I know Islands Trust anyway, we tried with 26, but the way that bylaw ended up being was so that there was a quorum in the room. So that the feeling was that it would everybody would better understand what the decision was that was being made. Mm-hmm. And that was what we're aiming for, but there's still more flexibility. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this?
We just need to pick a date.
Well, we might as well go with the first Monday, the second Monday in April.
Yeah, the first council meeting in April. Let's give that a try.
April 11th.
Yeah.
The
11th?
Hey, are you gonna do supper, Hope, like we used in the past sometimes?
I don't know. We'll have to see what the meeting schedule is like.
The meeting beforehand, and we have to get supper.
There is a committee.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so the recommendation is that council directs staff to proceed with issuing public notice that all council meetings will be held in person with an opportunity for members of council and the public to participate electronically as of April the 11th, 2022. I'll move that.
I'll second.
Thanks, Rob. And further discussion. Is that a further discussion? Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, please. Just again, a question. When we talk about all council meetings, let's supposing we have a closed meeting in the afternoon, or we've got a committee of the whole. We've said all council meetings. If that's the way, that's the way. But I just really all council meetings, is that to our best advantage, or could it be that for some reason, because we've had to get together a closed meeting or some other, that it's just frankly more easier to do it electronically? It's just that all council meetings seems to tie us a little bit in knots, and I don't know whether that's what's intended.
Can we put open in front of that? Well, no, because then you've got to have the open meeting, which is the notice, and move to closed. Yeah.
Do you want to talk
How about
about
we
this?
loosen it and just say that council will be returning to in-person meetings as of April 11th?
Oh, I like
and
that.
then with each meeting notice, we have to indicate how it's going to be held and how members of the public can attend. So that is where we can say it'll be in council chambers, or it'll be electronic only. And we'll just have to make that really clear on the agenda. So maybe some reformatting of our agendas would be needed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hope. Thank you.
And the public can, sorry to just jump in.
Go ahead.
The public can always come to the chambers, regardless of whether it's in person or.
Correct. Yeah. Well, will that stuff all come out in the procedures bylaw changes? Hope?
Yeah, but council, I'll always be here. So there'll always be somebody in the room. So if council wants to come and be in person, then that's welcome. But if
it's a heck of a commitment.
Are you actually?
Somebody has to be here.
I'll be there with you.
It also is required that by the province that everybody, whether they have a computer or a phone or not, be able to attend the council meeting, right? So the public can always come, and there's a staff person there to make sure that they can see what's happening on the screen. That's part of the reason for this hybrid equipment, correct?
Right.
Well, we currently have that set up right now in the chambers with this being live streamed. Nobody has ever shown up, but it is there and available.
Good. I just wanted everybody to know. Yeah. Thank you. They can tell their neighbors.
Okay, Michael, you're okay with that then?
Totally, Gary, and I thank Hope for the suggestion. I think this is a more flexible and clearer way of dealing with it.
Okay.
That was
super.
certainly our intention.
Yeah, I gather, Hope, and thank you.
So can I ask that Hope reread the motion?
Yes, so that
Sure.
council directs staff to proceed with issuing public notice that council will return to in-person meetings with an opportunity for members of council and the public to participate electronically as of April 11th, 2022.
Okay, so we've moved and seconded it, and I will ask the question. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we have 100%. Thank you. Then 11.2 is a volunteer appreciation event. Hope Dallas, corporate officer.
Oh, this is a fun one, I hope.
Yeah.
So as you may recall, we have had volunteer appreciation events in the past. The last one we had was, I thought it was 2019, but it was actually in 2018, which seems like a really long time ago.
Yeah,
So
sure is.
I brought this up to Liam and I said we should pick back up on this, given that COVID restrictions are easing and we haven't done it for some time. So we're suggesting that we do it the week of Volunteer Appreciation Week, which is April 24th to 30th. We had kind of tentatively landed on a date with the hopes that council approves it. So we have tentatively notified a venue and we'll work on getting a list together. And we're requesting $4,000 to be included in the 2022 budget to fund this event.
Can you
Any
say
questions?
what the date is?
Yes, Thursday, April 28th, 6 to 9 p.m.
Good.
Okay.
Beautiful. Yeah. And do we figure out a venue? Not yet, though.
She's got that book.
We just gave them a heads up. Yeah, we're hoping for Doc Morgan's.
Okay.
And the lower patio and outside because it's covered, and I feel like people would be more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So so we've read that. Do we get a first and a second on that?
Not yet.
Okay, there's a first, David, second.
Can we be precise as to the date in the motion?
28th. No, I don't think so.
We can.
Well, I can't come except on the 28th so that's why but if you want to have it without me, then change the date.
Yeah. Likewise, I'm not going to be able to make the 28th as well. I've got a meeting that night.
Well, I can make the 28th. I can't make the 26th or 27th or 20th.
Maybe we should wait to hear what Docs has to say about availability. They may have some super amazing event already on the books.
Yeah, maybe. Can we get some dates, Hope?
Well, it would be the week of the April 25th to 29th.
Okay.
Or 24th to 30th, rather. We'd like to have it during the week in an evening.
No, I agree.
I think
is there any reason we didn't have it on the, you got it on April 28th, 26th and 27th don't work, or 29th?
Well, any date really could work.
Friday,
It's just got to confirm with the venue.
Yeah.
But it is available on the 28th from what you understand.
From what I understand.
But then Michael won't be there. Is anybody else got issues on those dates?
As I said, I won't be available except on the 28th.
You're busy every other day of the week?
We've booked to go away right after that council.
Oh, nice.
So we will not
Will you be available on the 27th?
No, I'm not available on the 25th, 26th, or 27th.
Okay.
We can, I can circle back to council on a date once we've confirmed things with the venue and their staffing, etc.
Okay, why don't we do that and see if we can't get everybody on board here. You're gone the 25th, Allison? Sorry.
I'll send a doodle
Whatever
poll.
the Tuesday is, I'm gone.
Okay.
And I'm guessing if we've got a council meeting on the 24th, don't we? I'm looking at my calendar.
The 25th.
Yeah.
You have council on the 25th?
25th.
Okay, let's see what you come back with. Hope.
Then I'm not available 26, 27.
Could I recommend that we circle back on this once we get confirmation, and we can always do a doodle poll or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We want to have a party. We're just not quite sure when.
Steph also
Okay.
suggested doing it in May. So we'll look at some dates and we'll get back to you.
All right, thanks. Did we get the vote on that?
We did not.
Okay, I'll ask a question. All in favor? Aye. Yahoo, party time. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to 11.3, which is CAO update. Liam Edwards. CAO, Liam, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to provide an update on where things are at with the ambulance service. And so I apologize for not getting this on as a on-table item, but I will ask for, I will have a recommendation for council. So since we received a response back from the head of the BC ambulance service, we've continued to remain in good communication with the scheduler, and they notify us almost every time when there is no ambulance service. And the month of February was pretty good. There was only really one day where there was no service. And so we were feeling pretty hopeful that things were improving. We did hear, though, that there was a possibility of a significant or high number of days in March where there would be no service. And we're told that it's about 28 shifts in this month in total where there will be no service. And so we've already gone with at least 5 days where there are shifts in those days, multiple shifts with no service. And so what I would like to recommend is that Mayor and Council authorize staff to draft another letter for Mayor's signature to the BC Ambulance Service with an escalated call for urgent action on this issue, and that direct staff to continue to pursue all options to reinstate full-time ambulance service on Bowen.
Thank you, Liam. Are you saying that there was 4 days when there was no ambulance service on the island?
Since this year in total, there have been 8 days where there have been multiple scheduled blocks with no service. So there's been, I don't know if that's been 8 full days of no service, or it's been during those 8 days, there've been scheduled sections where there's no service. So at least 8 days where service has been disrupted.
That's pretty serious because we should be informing the public if there's interruptions in the service.
I hear you on that, and there have been times where we have not been informed ourselves, and we hear about it after the fact. And so I also do think that if we do get approval to send another letter, that we should also be communicating that it's not the municipality's job or responsibility to inform the public about this disruption in service, but that the ambulance service needs to figure out a better way to communicate.
How are they going to do that?
And it can be a similar way that we would be doing it. I mean, we would be knowing so they would need to know in advance, and they would have to notify, put a notice in the undercurrent, or give us adequate notice to then post it on our website. But they could have a special web page that people could go to.
This has to be remedied. They made it they made quite a statement that said they would notify us of any shortages. And then you say they haven't been doing that.
There have been times where we've learned after the fact. So the majority of the time they do notify us in advance, but it's usually the night before or the day before. Or, you know, Aaron, our fire chief, heard through the rumor mill that there was the potential of 8 unscheduled services during the month of March. And when he contacted the BC Ambulance Service, it was confirmed that no, it's actually 28 disrupted schedules for the month of March. You know, but that was us having to reach out to them and us hearing about it through other means.
Yeah.
So I think it's at a bare minimum, we need to follow up with a second letter from Mayor and Council.
Absolutely. Maureen?
Thank you, Gary. I think this is outrageous.
It is outrageous.
The lack of service over that many days, not notifying us. And it's up to them to solve it. It's up to us to help push. So yes, I'm in support of a letter, but I also think that something more is needed than simply, you know, a letter. And I'm not exactly sure what that is at this point. I welcome suggestions.
Yeah, this is an extremely serious situation. Unfortunately, I'm not willing to let it go. We have to improve this situation dramatically. Not only are they not giving us service, but they're not notifying us that they're not giving us service. Now, are you sure that Aaron's not getting the notifications all the time?
That was from Aaron himself to me, saying that he gave me the stats on which days they were not available, and then also confirmed that there have been vacant shifts where he wasn't informed.
May I just ask a follow-up question? If there have been 8 so far this month, has there been any consequences as a result of that? Has our fire department had to respond to any emergencies during that period?
I don't have any stats or information on how much our fire department has or has not had to respond. But I would offer, Aaron is often looking for better solutions, and at the risk of putting something on the table without any proper report or further research into it, you know, Aaron has in the past suggested the notion of Bowen's fire department taking over the service entirely and Bowen receiving the amount of expenses that would be required for that through the BC Ambulance Service. And I wonder about that, you know, whether we have the, you know, properly trained staff and resources available for that, and whether we want to get into that type of, I'm not so sure, but I understand the sentiment and the feeling that, you know, we may well likely have the ability to provide a more consistent service if this is the way it's going to be maintained.
Well, it can't be maintained this way. It has to be fixed. They have to fix it. I'm just outraged that this is going on again. Thought we had it settled with them. Anyway.
Speakers list.
Yeah. Okay. I got Sue Ellen and then back to Allison, I guess.
And then Rob.
And Rob. Okay.
I've got first a quick question just to confirm. This is not the community paramedics, right? The ones that help the people with the long-term conditions, or are they included in this too? Or do we know?
No, I believe this is the EMTs, the emergency.
The emergency responders. Okay.
Yeah. Emergency.
All right, then I have a motion, and I'm probably Hope has one too. So, but I move that Council direct staff to escalate efforts to pick one, persuade, require, encourage, convince BC Ambulance Service to reinstate full service, and to prepare another letter for the mayor's signature. So it's not limiting it to a letter?
Can we ask a couple more questions before we vote on that, and I've got an amendment I would like.
Sure,
to
I
make
just wanted to put
Sure.
something on the table and thought maybe somebody would have a better word, but this also leaves it open for the mayor to go down there and bang on the door, or whatever it is that the mayor or staff may wish to do. It just says, and prepare another letter. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. Allison, what's your suggestion here?
Well, my suggestion, I have a question. Sue Ellen, I've got a couple of questions. Did you get any feedback, you or Michael, at the Trust Council meeting that any of the other islands were getting less service?
Gabriel
No.
or Galliano has reached out to us as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We didn't
then-
hear, we had really short time to talk about
Yeah,
those things.
okay. And then my other question is, what does somebody get told when they call 911 and there's no ambulance? Do they just get told, does they get told nothing and the fire department gets called?
I'm not
Right.
sure on the exact protocol, but the fire department is then on standby for service.
Yeah, so basically if you've got somebody with a serious heart attack, they don't have any, yeah, okay. And I understand from talking to Aaron that he has the ability to call the helicopter or call the water taxi.
Well, it has to go through BC ambulance, and so he himself cannot authorize that.
Okay, so, all right. I would like the resolution to make it very clear that just a letter is not going to do it. We want a meeting.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
At least a meeting.
Yeah.
William, did
So-
we have some folks that we were talking to there in the ambulance service? I've got to try to dig up those numbers.
There was somebody that responded.
Yeah, the vice president of BC
Ambulance service?
Health Service, which is
Yeah.
the CEO of the BC Ambulance Service.
Yeah, that was,
Well, let's start with her.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got
And
a
I'm
draft
wondering if we
motion
want-
here.
A meeting with the union.
okay, Hope, you want to go ahead? The
Sure.
motion?
Can we hear from Rob too?
Oh, yeah.
His hand is up in the dark spot up in this picture there, and I can't see it. Okay, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, obviously he's super concerned. I mean, I work at a community center where I deal with emergencies all day long. Well, not all day long, but a lot of them. And just even one day, just having that insecurity that is isn't on island, I think is really concerning. Like even a stroke, for instance, if you get to the person within half an hour, you can actually really save their lives or save major issues. So I'm already worried just the ambulance getting to my house in that time to be able to stop something like that, let alone communicating and all this stuff where, well, then I might as well throw my wife or me or my son in the car and drive them to the Cove myself. Now, I don't know if I'd be wanting to wait around and then an hour later and I could have taken them myself. So that's a huge concern, and informing the public. I mean, if there's an emergency, nobody's going to go on the Muni website, obviously, to go look, see if there's service. I guess my question, Liam, around the fire department, and I know Aaron isn't here, which is too bad, but and we've talked about this in the past on volunteers in the fire department. Just, I think it's really important that we have some people on the fire department that I don't need them to be able to pull out hoses and all this kind of stuff, but I would like to have some people on the fire department that would be able to treat a stroke on site and things like that. So my question is, if we tried to recruit people like that, would they also have to do all the fire stuff, or can we have some people on the fire department that, in a case of a medical emergency, and instead of sending the whole fire department out, I don't know what the full operation would look like, but then we can have a nurse or somebody like that can go out on site and deal with that specifically. I think that would give a bit of comfort, especially in this hopefully transition or this time where we don't have full service.
I can't really answer that question. I can look into it for you though, Councillor Wynan, and I essentially like a volunteer EMT.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it should just be part of, like, I don't even like calling it the fire department because
They're paramedic.
Yeah, but I mean, 90% of the call, we had a report last year, 90% of the calls are non-fire related, right? So, I mean, I want to have volunteers in our emergency response or fire department, whatever you want to call it, that can deal with the issues that we're dealing with, which almost all of them are medical emergencies. And, you know, there's very few house fires. So I would, as a resident, feel much more secure knowing that there's a whole bunch of fire people on the department that are trained not in putting out fires, but in treating a stroke or a heart attack or an anaphylactic shock or whatnot.
I can jump in there, Rob.
Are you going to pay them accordingly?
I can jump in there. I know for matter of fact that there is at least 2 paramedics that are also members of the volunteer fire department.
Yeah.
And then there are several that have first responder training and
the term I was
high levels of first aid training. So there is that overlap. So I just wanted to give you that comfort.
And we've witnessed it here at the hall actually too. And so the fire department is often the first on scene and they're providing first aid. And then the paramedics come in and take over as as they should. However, we don't, can't always rely on that right now. But so that I mean, yeah, we can look at trying to promote more of that. But we definitely have a pretty good level of service with our fire department right now.
Yeah, like somebody that would know how to deal with a stroke on site and whatnot.
That has to be a paramedic.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, or I know, but there's first aid stuff that can, obviously now there's no paramedic. Well, maybe it needs to be paramedic, but that gives me some comfort, hope that there are people, and hopefully that those are the people that are sort of frontline for that kind of service versus, let's say, putting out a fire or whatnot. But I'd be curious to know, if every volunteer on the fire department needs to have the ability to put out a fire, because that's going to limit the amount of people that we may need for medical emergencies that, let's say a retired nurse or somebody like that, that's not going to be putting out fires, but they can provide these other services. So I would just encourage that as much as possible.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Michael, we're going to go to you. You've been waiting patiently, and then I want to hear what Hope had drafted there as a recommendation, but Michael first.
Thanks, Gary. Listen, I'm listening to this very well-intentioned conversation, but to tell you the truth, it's making me utterly nervous. It makes me desperately nervous to talk about someone stepping in to do this and someone else stepping in to do that. As I'm sure, by the way, no one's going to turn their back that I know of working with us at the moment on any emergency. However, I think it's a sidestep, and I think it's a very dangerous sidestep. We have a major breakdown of an essential service. An essential service requiring qualified people 24/7. So anything else dilutes the conversation.
Agreed.
And at risk of sounding harsh, and whilst appreciating all the things that other people do, I think our focus is repairing something which is horribly broken, and not allow our conversations to go in a different direction and deviate from what we have to get done, which is simply putting this service back at a level of which we need, and frankly got, at risk of sounding a bit precious, every right to expect. So I think it's a focus job on this, and I don't accept any other homemade solutions as being anything other than what wonderful people would do, I know, at the spur of the moment anywhere on this island. It's not the answer. And getting things back to where they should be, Mayor, is the only answer that we would find as a council, I think, acceptable.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much, Michael. I totally agree with what you're saying. And it's not for us to fix this situation. And unfortunately, because we are who we are and we're trying to look after the community, we're looking for fixes internally in the community. And we shouldn't have to do that. This is the issue. And But yeah, so let's see what you've got there as a recommendation, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay, that council directs staff to draft a letter for the mayor's signature to the British Columbia Ambulance Service expressing council's ongoing concern regarding gaps in ambulance service on Bowen Island and request urgent action to be taken to reinstate full-time ambulance coverage. And further, the council directs staff to pursue all options with BCAS to assist in the reinstatement of full-time ambulance service for Bowen, including requesting a meeting to be held as soon as possible.
Yeah, I like that part of it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we got a mover and a second, but we still have Sue Ellen. Did you get a second on yours?
No, I never got a second, and that's totally
Okay,
fine.
so
I was
it's
just
dead,
trying to
yeah.
help the
Thank you.
conversation. My question is, do we want to say something in this motion about providing the community with notice? Or do we want to leave that as part of the work that will be done?
I think leave it as part of the work that's
Yeah,
going to be done. I think
Covered in the letter.
Okay,
I think there's going to be some nasty phone calls go along with this. So followed up by a letter.
okay, that's fine. I'll second if nobody's seconded it. I don't,
Okay, thanks.
it's
Sue
fine
Ellen.
with me.
So I'll ask a question. Any further conversation? No. All in favor? Aye.
Right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Hopefully we can find a resolution to this. I'm just shocked that this is going on again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad. Okay, so we're gonna go, Liam, carry on.
Oh, that's all I had for
Okay,
my
for
update.
this one? Okay. So I'm gonna go to 11.4, which is the update to council on Metro Vancouver business. Metro Vancouver Director David Hawking.
Thank you, Gary. We had a meeting last Friday with the Metro Vancouver's Climate Action Committee, and as everybody knows, Metro Vancouver is developing a comprehensive climate change strategy, and there are 10 issue areas where papers are being developed and what are called roadmaps. And the draft roadmap that was presented last week was on industry and business, reducing emissions and being able to handle the changes that are coming through by industries and businesses. And much of that doesn't affect Bowen, but some of it does. Included in this are the emissions from non-road engines. So the excavators and the big equipment that we have in our construction stable here. And also the, our big industry, one of our big industries is construction. And a point that I think I mentioned it probably about 6 months ago when Allison sent me a really interesting piece of work that's being done in Nelson about we're all familiar with reducing emissions from our homes on their ongoing operations. But what's kind of new is this idea of understanding the emissions that go into the construction of our houses, the materials that go into our houses and so on. And that will be part of this work. So this is a draft plan and it's up for review. So just speaking this out to the Bowen community and any members of the community who are part of that industry are interested in understanding this should have a look at that plan. And it's starting its consultation right now. And
thank you, David. That'll be interesting to see what that looks like. So 11.5 is an update to council on Island Trust business. Islands Trust Municipal Trustees Fast and Kale.
I'll let Michael go first this time.
Okay.
Okay, unmute. Okay, well, as people will know, we spent Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in beautiful Nanaimo, attending the Islands Trust meeting. And frankly, it was a very productive meetings in more ways than one. For me, the highlights were on the Tuesday afternoon, trustees had a chance to speak to the consultants who did the independent review. I think that was extremely healthy because any questions any of the trustees had, they could speak to the people who wrote that review directly. So, so I think it's really, really fair to say that the review got a good airing from those initial summary pages, the opening pages, right the way through to the recommended steps. And the session went on the whole afternoon. And to the very best of my knowledge, everybody present, if they had a question, they got the question answered. The report is now, of course, it was actually public before the meeting. It's on the Island Trust website. And I think we should put it on our BIM website as well under Islands Trust, because it's now a public document which everybody has paid for, whether they pay, whether it's paid for, whatever way it's paid for by the trust. It's the property of the trust, and it's now public. So I think it is fair that on the subject of this, we did not have an opportunity at the end, and I can explain why, on Thursday to actually form the governance committee and take it from there, because those are the really meaningful steps from now on. And that is a kind of something we've pledged to do, I think, in the, am I right? So in the June meeting, the next meeting is June. Yeah, the June meeting. So that is pledged. And as I said, for anyone who hasn't had a chance to study the report, it's there now, it's public, and I hope they'll have a chance to read it. Probably the next issue, other than the routine reports, was the budget. The original budget was presented by the Financial Advisory Committee, and it's interesting when you get a chance to meet. We couldn't have done this if we were all on Zoom, and I'll explain why. Well, we sit there and we're discussing this, and there's a motion coming up, introduced, said, nope, we want to reject this budget. And it's interesting, I'm sitting there watching Peter, who's the chair, and we're both doing the same thing. We're counting up the trustees that are for that and the trustees that are against it. And we kind of agreed that, to the very best of our reckoning, because you've got some present, and I think there were 5 or 6 on the screen, it was pretty 50-50. So credit to the chair, what was decided to be done is that budget was just held over that night while the net of the conversations were worked on by the Islands Trust staff to come forward with a proposal the following morning based upon the conversations held by the trustees. And there had also been one of the trustees who'd been member of the Financial Advisory Committee, had himself put forward some suggestions. So there was something of a framework there, but basically it was the independent views of the 26 trustees that the staff worked on. And the following morning, well, that following morning, I can tell you, because I was talking to our esteemed chair till 1:45 in the morning. So it was a night. These are the things, the dynamics you can't do on a Zoom meeting, and it shows that you can meet agreement. So upon presentation of the budget on the Thursday, was it lunchtime, before lunchtime? I actually, it was all a bit of a blur, but maybe it was early mid-morning. But anyway, by the time we got to it, we were able to agree with a budget which represented a savings on the original budget, and with it was approved with the exception of 1 trustee. So a significant savings from the original, kind of a negotiated agreement. Definitely the chair got something he told me he was looking for, which I don't blame him. He was looking for some consensus to go ahead. He certainly got that. If there's any downsides about these meetings, we kind of run out of time. Sue Ellen commented just a little while ago, the ambulance, there were things that we could have discussed. We just couldn't get round to. We couldn't form the governance committee that we would have liked to have done. We simply ran out of time. We had to get that budget completed. So I certainly learned some things from that meeting, is that if you're dealing with very difficult and complex situations, it's a darn sight better to do it in person than it is remotely. And we now can kind of move on, because with the next issue we're going to face is the policy review. But everyone just at the moment taking a deep breath following that three days. And all the catch up afterwards, so we can at least put that on one side, the budget, and work on the governance and work on the policy statement. So it was quite a 3 days, and I'd be glad if Sue Ellen would like to add anything to my comments. I'm sure I hope you will.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Sue Ellen, what was your perspective?
Well, I won't go into detail here, but it was a good, productive meeting, as Michael says. And I'm assuming, yes. And I just wanted to mention, we also covered the consultants came and talked to us about the trust policy statement update, which we had in our committee of the whole with Bowen Island this morning. So that's was introduced to everybody. The governance review, the consultants presented it to us and we got a chance to ask questions, as Michael has indicated. I'm intrigued by some of their findings, like that the Islands Trust can be viewed as an agency as opposed to a local government or a special purpose local government. Anyway, that was interesting. And there's other recommendations there that I think are good. So we'll see where it goes to, as Michael says. We'll come back to that in June. Because trustees haven't had a chance to discuss it among themselves either. The budget, that took a long time. The budget went up, the budget went up a little bit for Bowen Island Municipality, I think. Anyway, we're now at our 3.09% increase to the levy. Will be applied to the existing BIM tax base plus an additional 0.95 to new development, new construction additions, that kind of thing, as there always is. And the increase to other islands will go up by 2%. And that was what I gather the main push was a lower tax rate for the other islands. But we went through it all, added a whole bunch of things back in. And so I don't think there's any changes for the mapping recharge, groundwater recharge potential is still coming for Bowen, and the heritage preservation overlay mapping, which has the reconciliation elements. These things are still going ahead that I've described before. And I just wanted to mention that the Community Stewardship Awards program is reinstated now. And so the deadline for nominations is April 18th for any group or individual or somebody with a lifelong contribution towards stewardship and protecting and preserving anything within the Islands Trust area. They can be nominated until April 19th, and all the information's at the website. It's also at 12.2C in our agenda today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sue Ellen. And we'll move on to the update to Council on Metro Vancouver Regional Parks Committee meetings. Councillor Nicholson.
I think Rob has his hand up again.
Oh, sorry, Rob. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry. And hopefully I'm not going off track on this, but Michael, I really appreciated your comments regarding the meeting in person and some comments around decision making around that. I made a comment at a meeting a little while ago, and I sort of felt like, oh my God, I hope and Liam don't take this the wrong way when I said I'm not happy with all the meetings being on Zoom, because I think they've done an incredible job having us on Zoom. Like, I don't know how they do it, but it always usually seems to work. So hats off to you guys for that. But it's that subtlety of us meeting together as a group and eating together and whatnot that really helps us make really good decisions. And you know, and us being completely online right now, I feel that we've lost some of that. So I'm really looking forward to, you know, us going back in person. And I think that will actually help with effective decision making. So so I appreciate that feedback from the Islands Trust meeting, Michael. That's good.
But at risk of sounding patronizing, I think it's a miracle we've been able to retain the cohesiveness we have over this elongated period.
Yeah.
If you think about, we're a group of 7 lay people, mayor and council. We deal with every issue that's put in front of us, and we have to deal with it and move on, as do other councils and other groups all over the place. We're not unique. Yeah, I actually thank you, Robert. I think it compliments to all, and as I said, at risk of sounding totally patronizing, but I am myself. I look back over the last, was it now 2 years?
2 years,
yeah, and say, Wow, please, let's not do this again.
Yeah.
No, let's not. All right, thanks for that. And Maureen, over to you.
Thank you, Gary. The Metro Parks Committee met a week ago Wednesday. It was a brief meeting followed by a workshop on Indigenous relations. Included in the late items that Hope sent this afternoon is the presentation package for the meeting, and the first 6 or 7 pages or so deal with an initiative that is sparked by the SFU Center for Semester for Dialogue, and a group of students have been working on a project called the Year of the Salish Sea. One of the things that they have requested of the City of Vancouver is that the City of Vancouver issue a proclamation that this year is the Year of the Salish Sea, and they have extended an invitation to all local governments to do the same. So I won't go into details. You've got the presentation package in your email, and maybe we could revisit it after you have a chance to look at it. It seems very much the kind of thing that Bowen might want to be involved with. And also I understand that the week before they had made a presentation to the Islands Trust. And a couple of the members of our committee, Bill Saprovich in particular from West Van, brought to their attention the House Sound Community Forum. So 2 very excited young students who were making their delegation to Metro Parks were well received and given a couple of leads for where they might go next with their project. Also in that presentation package, and it's just for interest sakes, you'll find a ton of information about the Iona wastewater treatment plant. And I hadn't really intended to circulate that as well, but you may want to take a look at what a $9 billion wastewater treatment plant project looks like. One more thing. The work in the Davies Orchard is slated to begin in the coming months, and there is something of an update on the Metro Vancouver website, just with some additional details about the project. And Jeff Fitzpatrick from Metro, my expectation is that he'll be reaching out to the community with some targeted stakeholder consultations in the next while. Liam, I believe that you and other staff met with Jeff. Is there anything you want to add regarding the Davies Orchard?
That's correct, Councillor Nicholson. We did meet, and he just provided a little more information about the sort of timeline, and they believe that this summer they'll be able to share more information, get some signage up, and also perhaps come to. I asked if they could come to council as well and do a public, which they do a public meeting, and they agreed to that. So
great.
As it progresses, we'll schedule something. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's my report.
Well, thank you, Maureen. And we're going to move on to the last but not least, update to council on TransLink Mayor's Council meetings. Councillor Alison Morse.
Not a lot to report. The last meeting was February the 24th, and the public meeting was one of the shorter ones on record, and then into closed meetings where we've been working on the vision and the next investment plan. But the ridership this in January was the highest it had been since COVID-19 started. Mm-hmm. So that's good. And I think you've all seen the news and heard the press release that TransLink is not going to be enforcing or requiring people to wear a mask on the buses or on public transit. They're certainly encouraging you to do it optionally, but it's not going to be a requirement any longer.
Good. Is
And
that
the
it,
town
Allison?
seems to be coming around with a little more funding, hopefully, for the large capital items.
Great.
But that's still all in discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Allison. And that takes us right down to question period. I see Alex is very patiently sitting in the wings. Have you got anything, Alex, that you'd like confirmation on?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, I can't get my camera working, so I'll just go
That's okay.
audio. So just some clarification with these 28 or so shifts missing from ambulance, that's 8-hour blocks, right? Not necessarily days. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Alex, I can try to get that confirmed for you. Right now, I just have the dates that there were shifts that were missing. And so I don't have it tallied up in total hours that were.
Okay.
available.
So, but was it, they expect 28 days this month without a shift?
Sorry, 28 shifts.
Okay.
And for this month, and that does not include that there were already 4 other days this month where there were missed shifts.
Okay.
So up until this point in time, what I have, the information that I have says that there were 8 days where there were missed shifts, and that we can anticipate that there will be potentially 20 more missed shifts for this month of March.
Okay. I got you.
Wow.
And then, so now when you've talked to them, have they, I don't know exactly how their recruiting's going, but have they at least said why they don't always let somebody know so that we at least know the shift won't be covered?
No, we have not got that information.
Okay. All right, I think that's good for now. Thank you all.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so that will bring this meeting to the adjournment, and we will go back and finish up the our closed council meeting.
Barry,
Yes.
I noticed that Colleen O'Neill has signed in. Is she wanting to raise a question in question period?
I don't know. Colleen, are you there?
Hi, I am. No, I don't.
Okay.
I just saw the Zoom link and thought this looks interesting.
We're just leaving.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, I know.
I always
actually got
miss
finished up
the
on
best
time.
parties.
I know.
Happy birthday, Dave.
Happy birthday, did you say?
To Dave.
Oh, really?
Oh, happy birthday, Dave.
Happy birthday, Dave. Wow.
Okay, I'm going now.
What a
Bye.
guy.
Thanks for that, Colleen.
Bye.
Okay, see you, Colleen. So do we have to go back in, hope for that, finish up the closed meeting?